Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. And today we're talking with Brock. I've ran across Brock here a couple times here at Thrust Flight. You've helped out with Thrust Day, and
Mhm.
you've been around helping with all sorts of things. So today we're going to be talking about anything general aviation. If you're looking to become a student pilot, if you are a student pilot, if you're a CFI, or you're just interested in general aviation, this is a great show for you. Thank you for tuning in. With Brock today, we'll talk about flight training. We'll talk about some of his goals, some of the difficulties of maneuvering through flight training, and even a little bit about some of the maneuvers themselves and how you can kind of grasp those things. But without any further ado, would you mind reintroducing yourself for us just one time?
Like you said, my name is Brock. I grew up in the DFW area.
Mhm,
Started thrust flight here in August of 25.
mhm.
Finished through the ZTA program at the very beginning of June of 26.
Yeah.
So it took me about like 9 calendar months and some change. Also got to get my MEI rating. So I think
Mhm.
overall my training in total was like maybe 10 months in
That's
total.
awesome. That's the design. It doesn't
Yeah,
always go that way, but yeah.
exactly. But no, I just had a passion for aviation as a kid, and then decided to come here
Okay.
and come
Yeah,
here.
and my first question for you is uh what's the appeal for you for flight training in general or becoming a pilot? Like what is the thing that made you want to do that?
Yeah, so like I said, I had a childhood dream of becoming a pilot. Grew up in aviation, like my family kind of grew up in aviation. My dad, he went to college for aviation. He
Mhm.
got his commercial single engine land and was
Mhm.
working on commercial multi engine land before he graduated. Didn't finish the multi engine land, but ultimately he went into airport operations.
Mhm.
And so he worked in airport operations at DFW Airport. And my mom was a flight attendant. So I was
Okay.
just we were kind of around the aviation community a little
Yeah.
bit. And so I remember like specifically one day my dad got to take me in his like little DFW yellow truck. We were on the tarmac and I was like seeing all these big airliners like just around me, and I was just like some 4-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And I was just like, dude, this is sick.
Yeah.
And then we went to air shows all the time. So I just always had a general passion for aviation since I was a little kid. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And so was it the lifestyle or was it the planes at that point when you were
Oh,
a
it was
kid that attracted you?
100% the planes. Like
Okay.
I loved like anytime I'm outside, I'm not looking at where I'm going. I'm looking up
That's
because
cool.
I'm looking up. I'm like, ooh, what is that? What is that?
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. Well, hopefully our private archers didn't let you down.
oh no, they
So
didn't.
yeah, that's awesome. Okay. You say you have a you had like sort of a childhood dream of flying, uh, but it also kind of sounds like with today's era, it's as simple as being curious and
Hmm.
googling some things, um, because otherwise people like have to be very what's the word intentional, I guess.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is how much did you really think you were going to actually do something about flying planes up until you actually chose to look into it?
Yeah, so it was really like I said, it was a childhood dream of mine. I grew up around aviation. My dad was a pilot. He didn't work. He didn't go into the airlines or anything like that, but
Okay.
he did his training out in Jacksonville. He got his commercial single engine land and then was working on multi engine before he graduated, but never did the multi check ride.
Okay.
So hopefully I can do that now for him. Like I'm like, hey, let's get your multi now.
Right.
Anyways, so yeah, so he kind of like instilled my passion for aviation as a kid. My mom was a flight attendant for American Eagle back when
Hmm.
it was Eagle, and then so with my dad working at the airport, I was over at the airport like all the time.
Right.
And so he worked in ground operations for a little bit, so I got to see, or airport operations rather. And so I got to like sit in his truck and I would go up to the big planes, like on the ground, on the tarmac, like coolest thing ever.
Right.
We go to air shows all the time.
Okay.
Got to see the Blue Angels so many times, like super huge fans of those guys.
Super cool.
And ultimately, it was all through high school, like all the way to high school. Like I wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
And then it wasn't really until like that my senior year when I was like a drum major when I was like, okay, I can see myself being a band director or I could be a pilot. And
Hmm.
so I was really doing well in in like the band role and like really being successful in that. And I was like, okay, let me give this a shot.
Yeah.
And so that's why I went to go pursue music instead, but
Absolutely.
still had, hey, you want to be a pilot in the back of my ear. So I was just like, all right, let's check this out. And so I did a lot of research
Hmm.
when I was working, like during the summers when I had my summers off. I did a lot of did a lot of research on schools, did a lot of research on like, what it is to be a pilot. I have a lot of friends who are pilots right now.
Yeah.
And so I would like ask them questions, meet up with them for lunch and things
Okay.
like that. And also just get to catch up with them because they're my friends. So,
So you had a general, I got you. You had a
hmm
general understanding of the industry. Not necessarily that you knew that much. Maybe you did, but I'm saying you weren't caught off guard by entering the industry and thinking like, what is a plane?
no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. I had a very under basic foundation, I
Yeah.
guess.
That's cool.
I could be able to point out the different planes in the sky, and that's about
Yeah, that's awesome.
it.
That's awesome. But yeah, it's hard to ignore that thing, that little itch that every future pilot has when
Exactly.
they're flying over you too. So I'm glad
Exactly.
you came and checked it out. Can you tell me, was there any other route that you almost went at any point in that journey before you came here? I like to ask that because I don't know. I think it's insightful to think that, oh, I almost did
Yeah.
one of those kind of things.
So besides band directing, I almost wanted to just pursue like music performance. So
Hmm.
basically, so my primary instrument was trumpet.
Okay.
I always had the dream of being a trumpet player for like a music studio that was producing music for movies.
Oh,
So
sweet.
like growing up, so some of the reasons why I joined band was because I listened to a lot of classical music, but mostly like film scores. So like I'll be
Right.
listening to Star Wars, Jurassic Park, those kinds of things, and be
Yeah.
like, man, it would be so cool to be in like those orchestras and to be like, yeah, I was playing in that movie, and
Yeah.
like so like there was a little bit of that I played around with, but as like a performer, it's like super rare for you to get those jobs. And
Mm.
like basically it's like once you get that job, like you can hold that job until you retire.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because like it's like
They don't circle through very much. Yeah,
no.
when someone can do the job, they stick around with it, and they like doing that job. So
Exactly.
it makes sense.
Like my private lesson teacher from high school, he's still he got the Fort Worth principal trumpet player job, which is just like first chair.
Right.
Like you're the top dog in that orchestra for trumpet. And
Sweet.
so and he's still there now. And so he's been there a long time.
That's
So
freaking cool. Well, I look forward to trying to understand a little bit about how your thought processes around music might influence the way you understood some of the things you learned about aviation. Because I
yeah.
feel like there's always some sort of line to draw there.
hmm
What I want to kind of jump forward a little bit and ask about what it was like starting at thrust, and maybe not thrust specifically, right? Just flight training, because there's plenty of people who are considering starting flight training and or are starting flight training, and I think they'd like to hear from someone who's just gone through some of this freshly, especially maybe 9 months ago.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you finally pulled the trigger?
Well, it was exciting, it was very exciting to like get going on it. It was a lot of like having trust and a lot of having faith
Yeah.
and that it was going to work out because
Yeah.
before, to apply here, you need a first class medical.
Hmm.
I got deferred my first time.
Okay.
And so I had
That's
to go
rough.
through that whole deferral process, which wasn't easy. It was like, it took like, I tried to get it back in like September,
Okay.
knowing it was like, or like September of like 24.
Right.
And so I was like, knowing it was going to take a long time because I was diagnosed with ADHD as a young kid.
Hmm.
And so I took ADHD medication. And then up until college, like once COVID hit, I stopped taking that medication. And I believe it's like you have to be off ADHD medication for like 4 years
Wow.
before you can get your medical and stuff like that. And so by the time I was like right at that 4 year mark.
Right.
So I knew that I was going to have to get deferred going into getting my medical.
Mm.
And so I was just like, okay, so
Let's go through that process.
yeah, we can go through that process and then I'll get to the
Yeah.
whole teaching test. So went through that whole process. So I saw an AME. They were like, all right, I see you have ADHD, but it looks like it's like you don't take medicine for it anymore. So your process should be a little bit more simpler.
Okay.
So basically all I had to do was give them like a driving record, give them prescription records, give them medical records of every ADHD doctor that I saw,
Right.
and then ultimately had to write it like a personal statement. So I gave that all to my AME, and he reviewed everything, and he was like, "Yeah, man, this looks good. This should be a simple case." And
Okay.
so I had to basically sent all our stuff to the FAA, and then basically like 6 months later, I got my medical.
Oh wow, that's good. And thank you for sharing that, because it's a very common case, obviously.
Right.
But what you just said about getting the documents in order and giving it to your AME, and then them like sending it out. Did you go into speaking with your AME before you had all the information to give him, or and then he requested? How did that work?
So yeah, so I didn't know like what information I needed to give him.
Okay.
So and he has this like special process that he has. I think it's like the hymns process. I'm
Yeah.
not exactly sure what it is. I think it is the hymns.
People refer to the hymns all the time, but I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that's always the scenario.
Yeah, there's different programs for different things, and so
Uh-huh.
he has this ADHD program, and so basically he's like, "Here's what I need." He gave me a list, and
Okay.
so I was like very adamant and like getting everything together. I got everything together in about 2 weeks, sent it over to him,
Okay.
and then it took him some time to review it because he has to, review other people's stuff, be it,
Obviously.
obviously an AME, checking on other pilots and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I also had to do a psychiatric like aptitude test kind
Yeah.
of deal, and so basically it was just like, all right, let's test your brain knowledge, and I was like scouring online. I'm like, how do I prep for this test? There's like literally nothing online to help you
Whoa,
like
what the heck?
prep for it, so you're like kind of going into this blind. But basically they're just testing to see how well you listen, how well you can multitask, and
Hmm.
basically retain knowledge and stuff like that. So ultimately defining that, and then sent all my stuff over to him. And then he reviewed it. He said, "Yeah, man, your case looks good. So
Mhm.
I don't think the FAA is going to have any problems or any issues." They
Sweet.
sent it over. He sent it over in like spring break of like March of 25. Got my medical in like April of 25.
Right.
It was like, it was crazy too, because like I told my boss, I was like, "Hey, like I didn't have my medical yet." I told my
Yeah.
boss that I was working for as a band director, "Hey, I really want to go pursue being a pilot. This is going to be my last year of teaching." Still didn't have the medical, still didn't get accepted into thrust flight or anything like that.
Wow.
I was just kind of going off of faith.
Yeah.
And so and then that weekend the medical came in. I was like,
Oh, dude,
that's
that's freaking
crazy.
crazy. That's awesome.
I'm
And
like,
you told him that even knowing that you weren't even through that process yet, but you're like, I'm gonna put it in the air. I'm
yeah.
gonna say it out loud.
Yeah, and like, my wife and I, we were, talking about it, we were praying about it. We had a lot of faith in, God was going to provide for us, and he did. And so,
That's sweet.
but yeah, he got the medical and it was all good. And then ultimately started in
Mhm.
August 18th of 2025. And that was a special day for me because it was my dad's birthday. And that was the reason why my dad is like the reason why I'm in aviation. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I want to start August 18th. And so I was like, all right, we're going to do that. And
Yeah.
so ultimately, the first 2 weeks, I felt like I was drinking through a fire hose.
That's what they say. That's what they
It
say.
was very like overwhelming at first, like, and like honestly, don't be afraid about it being overwhelming
Mhm.
because it's going to be a lot. Almost
Right.
every rating that you're going to go through, you're going to be drinking through a fire hose the first 2 weeks of that rating.
Right. For the ground knowledge, especially, right? They're throwing it at you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like, and in private especially, not only are you learning about aviation, one, but also you got to learn about your airplane. You got to learn how to fly the airplane. You got to learn
Right.
the systems of the airplane. Like I knew going into aviation that I needed to know about weather and I needed to know about aerodynamics.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I needed to be a mechanic or that I needed to be a lawyer and learn about the FAR.
Yeah.
So I was just like that. Those were all completely new to me. So I would say like going into it first 2 weeks is just like, okay, you are going to be drinking through a fire hose, but take what information as you can
Hmm.
because it's going to be overwhelming,
Yeah.
especially if it's like if you're going through, thrust is an accelerated program,
Right.
right? Like, and I knew that going into it. I knew that I was like, okay, this is going to be really fast paced.
Yeah.
And if it's going to be really fast paced, you got to learn quickly. And
Exactly.
so luckily I picked things up pretty quickly.
That's good. That's good.
Um,
And was there anything? And just to interject for a second,
mhm.
when you feel like you're drinking from a water hose, is there something that you do about that helps you feel like kind of like cope and adapt to that?
Yeah. So like one thing that really helped me was our LMS.
Okay.
I know for me personally, that helped me a lot because
Okay.
as we were doing the ground school, like the same slides that we were reviewing in the ground was in our learning management system.
Right.
So if I missed anything on the ground, I could just go back in the slides and then I can see they put in the slides where they got that information from in the PHAC, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge.
Right.
I could just go in that textbook, read that chapter for a second and be like, okay, that makes more sense now.
Wow.
So that's what helped me personally. It's just like, okay, let's slow down a little bit, give myself some time to process like outside of the ground class and basically just like dive deeper a little bit.
Right. And I think you were going to go forward a little bit more, but I want to say something about the LMS is that we developed that completely in house.
Right.
I remember when it came up in a meeting, we were in a meeting, and someone's like, "We're going to do 90 videos in a month or something." I'm like, we can't do that. But so we
Yeah, I
did
bet
it
that was a
over.
lot on your side.
Yeah, we did it over time, and honestly, it was one of the team members on our team, Lee, pretty much handled all the videos
Oh, nice.
completely. He kind of like he set up the whole GoPro system, kind of trained the CFIs on how to use them, at least the CFIs that were going to be a part of the LMS.
Right.
So also shout out to the CFIs like
Yeah.
Travis and I think was it Chisholm?
Travis, I think I've seen Zane in there. I think I've
Zane.
seen Chisholm too in
Okay, it
there
was
too.
Zane too.
The
But yeah,
goats.
so yeah, these guys spend a lot of time working on the LMS and making sure that there's quality content for you guys. And then I think Dylan Collins did a lot for the slides,
Hmm.
putting those together. He probably partnered with other people, but he did a lot putting it together. We did that all in house. We wanted to make sure our students had something, an extra touch point for their training, and for you to say that that is useful makes us feel good. Not only because we're glad it's good for you, but because we put a lot of work into it.
No, and I
So
understand, like, I understand the work that you guys have to put into it, because like back when I was a teacher, I was a part of like helping our online courses in band. Like,
hmm
you don't think like band has an online course, but we did.
hmm
We used Canvas, and so basically what that was, it was a little bit of a learning management system as well, but
right,
we mostly use that as like assigning homework assignments, like
right,
doing announcements to our students and parents, um, uh, homework assignments, recording assignments, things like that. And
absolutely,
so I understand the work that you guys had to do to put
yeah,
into that. So I had a deep respect for all the guys, all your work and stuff like that. And I
yeah.
was like, man, this must have taken a lot of time, because it took me a lot of time just to like do what I was doing.
Right.
And so, yeah.
So yeah, well, thank you again for bringing it up and acknowledging that. That being said, you were saying that you kind of once you got past that point of the ground and getting the flow into each rating, maybe does it change? Do you feel a little more confident? What happens after that?
Yeah, so basically after that, I like basically after private, I was basically having to go from teacher mode now to being a student again.
Right.
And so I was just like, okay, I need to remember what my study habits were.
Yeah.
And so it was very it was a transition for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, I could see myself in the eyes of a teacher, but I was also like just learning. I was back in student mode again. And
Yeah.
so I just stayed in student mode. I wanted to learn as much information from my CFIs that I could. And
Yeah.
so like I would be asking questions. I'd be like in the plane and just like trying to absorb as much information from my CFI as I could
Right.
during that time. And so
Yeah.
I think as time went on, I built better study habits, and
Mhm.
a lot of things just kind of clicked and retained
Mhm.
over time more. And that's one thing that you got to know and be
Yeah.
aware of. Like, as you are getting these new ratings, the previous knowledge that you have like gained
Mhm.
needs to stick.
Right.
Can't just go away. It's not like math where
Yeah.
you can just forget about it, or but no, it needs to stick, because
Yeah.
that it just builds over time. So
Absolutely. Uh, I want to zoom out a little bit because you're kind of touching base on some of the things that are a little difficult and you learn through the way, and so I want to get more into those. But I kind of want to have a even a better understanding because now that you're in the thick of it,
right.
at least from what you're telling me right now, we're kind of talking about okay, it gets difficult here, it gets difficult there. I'm gonna ask for some of your advice, but um, let's just say you've made friends here, which you have.
Yeah.
How do you think someone would describe you? I want to zoom out a little bit. I know this is a little weird to
Oh
ask you,
man.
but like maybe there's a key characteristic, and maybe there's a way that you realize people would describe you.
Uh, you know, I think, I think I feel like I'm pretty optimistic. I
hmm
feel like I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I'm pretty
hmm
positive. So I hope that somebody would view me as an optimistic person and
hmm
view me as helpful. I have been doing tutoring here, tutoring sessions here.
Um,
So I hope that, students can see me as somebody that they can go to and ask for help.
yeah,
And that has happened before. I have my like the regular students that I see as I'm tutoring. And then I also have students be like, hey, can you like just
yeah.
meet with me really fast? I'm like, I can, yeah, let's do it real quick.
That's cool.
And some like if I have the time, right?
Right,
So I hope that like people view me as like a positive, optimistic person that can, be helpful,
right.
and help, build people up.
Right. And
So
I'm going to double down on it a little bit because you meet people here
yeah.
and then they see a version of you that's grown and gone through school and maybe learn how to manage, difficult work and things like
Yeah.
that. What about your family? How do you think your family or maybe even childhood friends would try to describe you? You feel
You
like
know,
it's
my
different?
yeah, man, I'm sure some of the things will be the same, right?
Okay.
I'm sure they would say the same things. I think my family, they see myself as very goal oriented and goal driven
Okay.
as well. Even from like when I was a young age, you know, in band, like I had a like the goal was to like be successful on my instrument, and I felt
Hmm.
like I was successful at my instrument
Okay,
to the
cool.
extent that I was at that age.
Yeah.
Obviously I could have done better, but
Always.
you can always do
Yeah,
better.
exactly.
But I find my family probably sees me as like very goal oriented and like won't stop at anything, and I feel like my family friends will also view that to like achieve that goal. So
Okay, cool. And I know that's like a weird exercise, but because it makes you kind of look at
look
yourself in the house. Yeah,
outside in.
exactly. And on that note, then the last question I have about any of that is there something about you that you think more people should know about you?
Oh
That
man.
kind of is a way of you think about yourself, I guess. I'm practicing here, so
No, yeah, no, this is good.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is like you're making me having to think a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
I think the people here is just like, man, this guy can get stuff done, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
And so, you know, I had a goal to get it done in 9 months. I got it done in 9 months,
That's
you
awesome.
know, and a lot of timing worked out great for that to happen. I didn't have long trek ride waits. Very fortunate. Dispatch really was on top of it whenever they were scheduling for check rides. And I think I just happened to, when I was scheduled for check rides, it just happened to like be in the right moment of time where there was just DPEs available.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
I was very fortunate for that. And I hope that people can see me that I'm like a very goal driven person.
Sweet.
So,
Yeah, and I mean, you even getting through your deferral, your medical deferral in 6 months
right.
is a testament to that, in my opinion. I've
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people with the medical deferrals, and it's been difficult to get through for many people.
Right.
But I mean, I think that exact one getting through in about 6 months is pretty impressive. And again, a lot of
Yeah.
things line up for that to work out well.
Right.
Being able to have your paperwork and things like that, it's not
Hmm.
always easy,
Right.
but you managed to get that done. So thank you for entertaining me there and
No, you're
allowing me to
good.
ask those questions. I like that because it kind of you can kind of see people move through the difficulty of our program
Yeah.
in certain ways, and I like to kind of just see what those characteristics are.
Right.
Because my next question is, what was probably the most difficult? You said you got through in about 9 months, so you've gone through the ratings. You have about what, 6 certificates at this point as a pilot now, and so even if you're a fresher pilot, that makes you a pretty well. I mean, you've got 6 certificates.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Uh, what was one of the most difficult parts of this training program?
Oh man. To be honest, it was probably being a good husband at home. You know, I have a wife at home, and so my wife is very supportive. She, at first, when I told her I wanted to be a pilot, she was like, "No." She was like, "No, I'm not gonna do that,"
That's awesome.
because
Yeah. I love
she,
that answer, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
For me, it's just like being a good husband at home, because there was a lot of times where, yes, I was home, but physically I was like, mentally I was still here,
Oh
because like
man.
I was just like, I need to, you know, study for my stage check. I got a stage check coming up, and like, all right, I got my check ride. And so, but my wife, she was very patient, and she was very kind, very supportive.
That's amazing.
and
Yeah.
so and so I wouldn't have been able to do this program without her, and she's the moneymaker right now.
Oh,
So
that's even, yeah, that's also
so
amazing.
that's
So,
also awesome. And
yeah.
so I'm very supportive of her. And so I think for me it's just like that constant work life balance. And
Yeah.
so you know, one of the main reasons why, you know, I left band directing was the work life balance. I was
Right.
working 90 hours a week at my school, barely getting Sundays off
Wow.
sometimes.
Okay.
And
And I didn't
that's,
I didn't ask that. I meant to, but yeah.
no, you're good. And like, and that's not, anybody's fault. It was just the nature of the program. It was
Right.
just like, we were a very competitive program, and if you want to be successful, you got to put in time. And
Yeah.
so, and I went into that fully knowing it.
Right.
And so, and then I feel like some of that transferred over to here. Like I was just like, I got to put in a lot of time because I want to complete this in 9 months.
Understood.
And so for me, it was just like, yes, I'm physically home right now, but mentally, I'm still trying to learn how to do a steep turn.
Well,
Like,
there's an open loop in your mind, and I don't
yeah,
know about you, but when there's something I'm trying to figure out, it's really hard for me to like I'll hyper fixate on it. It's really
right.
hard to not do that. I mean, even here, there's like I'm doing a lot of new things that I've never done before, and I'll go home to my significant other, and she'll be like she'll we'll I need to try to tune in at home, but
Yeah,
I'm like still thinking about it, and
exactly.
I'm not learning to fly a plane, so
Yeah.
I can only imagine what that's like. But I like that you answered that way because
Hmm.
that can be difficult to do. What do you
Yeah.
is there Did you get better at doing that?
Yeah, I got better at it over time. It's
Yeah.
just like, hey, like today, like I have Saturday off today. Let's go and spend some time. Let's go hiking or something like that. Let's do
Okay.
something that me and you enjoy. And so we would either go see a movie or, go on a date.
Some quality time stuff,
Exactly.
right? Did you find it helpful to because you can't just go home and like hang out at home and kind of achieve what you're looking to achieve, right? So do you find it helpful to just be a little more intentional about the time you do spend together? Is
Yeah,
that what?
yeah, like the time that we have together is very important. And like right now I've had more time to spend with my wife.
Hmm.
Just lately just because like I'm home more, I'm able to spend more time with her
Okay.
and I really enjoy that. I really enjoyed that and I
Yeah.
still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And she's a band director too, so she
Oh,
she also puts in a lot of hours as well.
man,
So,
y'all are working
yeah.
crazy. Um, and one thing, and I don't want to talk too much about the relationship stuff
No, you're
if you
good.
don't want, but it's relative to a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people who sat in your chair right now that had just had a child,
Yeah.
and
That's crazy.
yeah, had just had a child, and maybe just got married
Right.
or very similar things, or maybe their wife is the breadwinner at the time. And for many people I've talked to, I can tell either just from talking to them or they've said it out loud that that is a big dynamic change
Mhm.
for them. And I think, there not everyone has the most stereotypical relationship, but oftentimes for men it's kind of like, and for women it's uncomfortable
Right.
for the woman to kind of hold things down for a while, and unless you guys really can talk about it that way. Can I ask you a little bit about was there a little bit, how did you navigate that? Was there even a thing to navigate?
Yeah, so there was some things to navigate.
Hmm.
We had to, prepare financially to be able to do this,
Right.
and so we knew that my last year teaching was going to be my last year teaching. So
Okay.
what we did, and during that my entire last year of teaching, we saved up money to be able to pay for rent because we knew that at one point, like under just my wife's salary, it wasn't going to be enough to pay for rent and to pay for everything else that we need to pay for.
Right.
And so we saved roughly like about $12,000
Hmm.
and just in the midst of a school year. And so we were putting in extra money into savings and stuff like that,
Hmm.
more than what we usually did. And ultimately, we are just using that money to help pay for rent, and then we're using my wife's income that she gets twice a month,
Right.
and that's just paying for all the daily expenses, right? And
Right.
so
Okay.
another thing too was one thing that I saw that Thrust offers is a ramping position. And
Mm.
so it's a part-time position. And they offer that to students after private.
Right.
And so I went into ramping right after commercial.
Right.
And so I was still trying to get, and I went after commercial because I was still trying to get in the groove of like my study habits, right? I didn't
Right.
want work to get in the way of my studying because
That's why you're
that's
here.
why I'm here, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so we had to navigate that a little bit, the financial side of things, and mentally it was also a little tough too.
Yeah.
My wife has all of a sudden a tremendous amount of like stress to be like I have to financially provide. And
Right.
so there was times where it was like we had to have conversations on like how are you doing? You doing okay? Like, how are you feeling about this? And she's like, I'm still feeling a little overwhelmed, or I'm still feeling this, I'm still feeling that.
Hmm.
But ultimately, we were able to work through it, and, my parents have been super supportive. Her parents have been super supportive as well. And so we have the support of both of our families.
Right.
And, ultimately, like, we had to jump through some hoops throughout training financially. And
Hmm.
so eventually, we got it done,
Yeah.
and so, and luckily we had a very good foundation of like savings built up to be able to help with just the daily living.
That's awesome.
And so
Yeah.
that helps a lot.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it takes a lot of big picture thinking there, a lot of big
Oh
picture
yeah.
conversations. It's not like day to day kind of things. It's kind of like, hey, here's what we're aiming for together.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And I've seen a lot of you guys go through this like thing where it's like, oh, that's kind of a lot of pressure actually. Like I can't waste their energy, my partner's energy and
Yeah.
time because I know what they're in this with me, so I'm gonna succeed. And
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but every time I talk to someone who is doing this with their partner's backing,
Hmm.
they seem to be that much more motivated. There's so much more focused
Oh
almost,
yeah.
and there's something to that. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
no,
It's
I
really cool.
totally agree with you
Yeah.
because I was just like, I don't want my wife to be holding this financial burden for as long as she has to.
Yeah.
So like I want to get done in the time that I said I was going to get done, and
Right.
I want to, try to find a job as soon as I can,
Yeah.
just to help relieve some of that financial burden,
Yeah.
because I know it is a burden.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it, this is you can't be a full-time student here and have a job. That's how thrust out. So if you
Right.
guys are listening, for the audience who might be considering flight training, obviously a lot of people will pick Part 61 to kind of either feel out whether or not they want to do flight training,
Right.
or because they think they can kind of be a little bit more flexible, which sometimes you can, but it takes a different kind of commitment and grit to get through and get to the airlines, which is it's possible, but a lot of times people end up here because they know that we've got most of that work laid out for them. They've just got to commit to the point at which you are talking about right now, which means no working full time. Which who can do that, right?
Right.
But if you think big picture and you might have some support, it's very doable in some scenarios. Also, I'm assuming you took out like a loan
Yeah.
to get into flight training.
Yeah.
Was that scary?
Honestly, it was like the first big loan I've ever taken out.
Okay.
I did some self pay, some loan,
Okay.
so I had some money saved up to help out.
Hmm.
Thanks to family to
Yeah.
help me out with that, and so yeah, so I did have to take out a loan.
Hmm.
It was scary, I
Yeah.
was just like, I've never taken out a loan. I don't know
Yeah.
what this process is like. I
Yeah.
did Sally Mae.
Okay.
Sally Mae was it kind of made it like a pretty simple process. It's
Yeah.
just like, all right, I picked the school. It already has the program loaded up, and then
Mhm.
you can like, for me, it was like since I was doing part self pay,
Mhm.
I didn't take out the whatever it is. I
The
don't
whole
even know
tuition
the whole
amount, yeah.
tuition amount. I just did like, I know how much I have, and I know how much I need.
Right.
So I used the majority of my loan is like that's comes like that is the big has more finances to it, but like
Yeah.
the money I saved up that helped pay for it too.
Okay.
So
Cool. Yeah, I just like to ask that because people are like, "How do you pay for flight training?" Most
yeah,
people alone with some self pay. So I'm gonna ask you this: what I think is the most difficult part about flight training, outside of learning how to fly planes and
right,
and all the knowledge and things like that. Um, you're entering into the period where you're going to be looking to work as a CFI.
right,
And even if you get a position, not I say if, but wherever you end up getting a position, um, you're still going to have this loan to probably
right,
start paying at some point too. How do you view this next period of your life as a pilot, where you're building hours and perfecting your expertise?
right. Yeah, so like this upcoming season, right, is it's kind of like, okay, where are we going with this? So
Uh-huh.
I just got done with my interviews here at Thrust, and so I'm waiting to hear results back from that. And
Right.
so definitely it's like, okay, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think some things that you need to be aware of, like especially if you're trying to be a CFI, you need to be flexible.
Yeah.
You need to be able to and willing to move, because I'd like to stay in DFW, but if I can't stay in DFW and I got to move, then we got to move.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and it's only going to be temporary unless you really like it wherever you move, right?
Yeah. Right.
you know,
Right.
Unless you really like where you're going.
Yeah.
And so it's only temporary, and you got to do what you got to do in order to achieve your goal. Like my
Right.
goal is to fly American Eagle and like eventually go to American or Southwest or wherever and get to
Right.
the airlines, right?
Right.
Um, and so if that's what I got to do to get to that goal, then that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
And
So,
so, financially, it's, not gonna lie, it is a little scary.
yeah.
It's just like
It's kind of open ended when you look at it. You're
yeah,
like, there's no perfect way to do this portion.
right. Like
Yeah.
I see how much I'm gonna have to pay just for interest, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So this is like a lot that I was
Yeah.
expecting.
Yeah.
But I know that ultimately, in the end, once it works out, it'll be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I tell my wife, I'm like, hey, this season that we're in, there's only like we're gonna look back at this and laugh. Be
Yeah.
like, hey, remember our 600 square foot apartment that we used to live in with
Uh-huh.
our dog? Crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly,
So
exactly. I'm imagining going through the process of myself. I thought about like, what it would look like often just to try to understand. And I'm like, who knows, maybe, I could become a pilot.
exactly,
But I think to myself about that period. And I've been through a certain series, you can't have all your ducks in a row before you make every decision, or else you may not make any decision.
right,
I feel like that's a thing. So I'm imagining being in the portion where you're owing payments on your loan, but you're making maybe $25 an hour, maybe $30 an
Right.
hour as a CFI,
Yeah.
and that's if you're who knows how many hours you're getting depending on where you end up getting
Right.
a position here at Thrust. You're gonna fly a lot.
Right.
That's great. That's ideal, right? But
Yeah.
it's not always guaranteed. So I'm imagining, man, I'm gonna have to take a temporary hit on my credit, aren't I?
Right.
Is how I'm like, I'll just take it because if you're gonna I think that something about aiming to become an airline pilot is sort of grandiose.
Right.
It's kind of like big thing,
Yeah.
to the point to where it's like I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And you almost start to think to yourself, man, when I get there, though, I mean, it's all like, of course, there's no holy destination of
Right.
like everything's perfect now, but what a big checkpoint! What a life changing achievement to become an airline pilot.
Yeah.
When I get there, though, I should be okay,
Yeah.
at least, if not great.
Yeah. And even when you're there too, you're going to experience hard times, right?
Yeah,
Like, and life can throw whatever at you.
exactly.
And so, like, you can prep and prepare and try to, feel like you have all your ducks in a row, but something's going to happen,
Exactly.
right? And so, just got to be prepared for the season that you're going to have.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess I'm just imagining if you have your eye on the prize, you'll get somewhere,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to handle whatever is going on.
Yeah.
So I like to try to paint that picture, but I'm like, I'll just pay it back later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Try to do as much as you can
yeah,
now
yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah,
like, still be able to financially be okay.
yeah, yeah. So
And then,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. So is that your goal to get to the airlines? Or are
Yeah.
you thinking about doing anything like a Part 135 operation?
Yeah, eventually, like, ultimate goal, be an airline pilot, right? How I get there, I'd be happy doing a cadet program and like joining the regionals or being in a 135 operation and then going to the majors.
Okay.
I'm down for whatever.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
I
if
hear
it
you.
says jet in front of it, I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, but yeah, so like right now, my current goal is like the ultimate goal, be an airline pilot. Where I don't care.
Okay.
Like I think American and Southwest are like my top two
Right.
because I like their bases and their destinations.
Okay. Sweet.
And so um, I would love to fly for United. I'd also love to fly for Delta. Those places are great too.
Yeah.
And like those are, big dogs,
Yeah. Exactly.
and then 135, I don't know much about the 135 scene, but like flying in Addison, you see so many cool private jets and
Absolutely.
stuff like that. And it's just like, man, that'd be sick to fly one day.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool to fly Taylor Swift around? I agree.
I think it would be. I think it would be. When I first started working with Thrust, we were in one of the other hangars next to the FBO.
Hmm.
It was like one of the FBO hangars. So it was, but the hangar was just private jets.
Yeah.
So I'd walk into office every day by walking through the hangar door, and it wasn't like the hangar door, the big hangar door. It was just
Right.
like a double doors. And I'd walk through the along the wall,
Yeah.
and there'd be. I mean, I don't even know the names of these jets.
Dude, the jets are sick.
Yeah, but they're just so cool. And we shared like one of the office hallways with some of the guys who maintained
Oh, cool.
the plane. So they were kind of like, I don't know what you would call their positions, but the plane managers or something like that.
Cool.
Whether it be for maintenance or just cleaning or like
Yeah.
getting ready to fly for the
Mhm.
pilot. But it was pretty cool to see how that operated. And those planes were super sick.
Dude, they're so sick, man.
Yeah, and they clean them. Like I saw often they got cleaned. They were just really cool.
Yeah.
And you'd see like maybe a family come through and load up the plane. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is what the heck is this?
Yeah, that seems
So
like, it's just like it's a like to be able to like fly those jets is just like they go higher, they're smaller and
fast.
they're fast, they look cool on the inside.
Yeah, so
So, I mean,
be good.
I'm
Nice.
down for whatever.
Yeah, sounds cool. What was there something I want to like back up a little bit
Yeah.
into your training? Sorry about that.
No, dude,
We're
you're
gonna
good.
switch gears a little. I want to know a little bit about some of the difficulties in the actual training, whether it be the maneuvers or whether it be something you were on the ground learning and navigating. Can you tell me about a time that you were a little like, "Ah, I don't know about this. I don't know how I'm going to get this, or maybe I failed something already and I need to double down on it." Can you tell me about something you had to put a little extra effort into in order to get down?
Yeah. So, I say for me, private was a lot. Just because, I was transitioning careers. I
Hmm.
was in a really good place with a really good group of people, and it's just like I just left, you know,
Yeah.
and like I'm going through a life change here. I'm like a
Okay.
season of transition. And so I was just like, okay, this is, you know, a little bit scary. You
Yeah.
know, I'm going into this like in full faith that I'm going to be able to pursue this and pursue my goal of like getting through 9 months and then
Yeah.
getting a CFI position and then blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Right. Um, but no, like during my time, like I'd say private was probably the biggest hoop I had to hurdle. Like I had to go from being in a teacher mindset to going back to being in a student mindset. So I
Right.
was just like a sponge, constantly learning information
Yeah.
of what
Did
the
you at some point feel like, wait, did I do the right thing by coming here?
yeah, no, not necessarily. I
Hmm.
knew I picked the right school.
Hmm.
I knew like because like when I toured here, like I went in and did my discovery flight, and I was just like, this is it. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is it.
That's awesome.
I'm like, because like what I was looking for a community of people that I can be able to learn and grow with.
Okay.
And so the moment I walked into the hangar, I was seeing study groups together. I was seeing full classrooms with an instructor leading that classroom,
Hmm.
and not really necessarily like one on one. That's
Right.
not really what I wanted. One on one stuff is great. I've done one like and like there's also one on one tutoring that we do
Right.
here, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like learning something fresh and new, I wanted a group of people and a community to learn that with. So that's
Yeah.
why I felt like Thrust Flight was the right place for me because
Right.
we had a community. And plus you guys like host events like ZTA Day, and then
Hmm.
you also do like bowling night. We had like Rough Riders night the other day or like a couple months ago or whatever. And so I never at any point in time I didn't doubt that Thrust wasn't it.
Right. Right.
And so
So when you're a private though, you kind of like you said you're going through this transition,
mhm,
and I'm just what I'm really wondering is if there was like a moment where something a new thought entered your mind that you had to navigate where and the thought was it something similar to um oh, what am I doing, or how am I gonna get all this in
right.
time? Am I gonna do this fast enough? Am I gonna be good enough? Like what was that? Do you
Honestly,
do you
for
know?
me, it was like going back into flying.
Okay.
Like before, I never had a fear of flying
Okay.
ever.
Right.
Like flying as a passenger, I'd be like giddy, you know?
Yeah.
I'd be like super excited. And then, you know, going from being a passenger now to being a pilot, it's like, oh shoot, this is on me. Like it wasn't that I was scared of flying. It was like, oh, this is me. Like I'm flying this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was just like a sudden realization, a sudden mind switch where I was just like, okay, like I'm the one flying this plane. I'm the one responsible for. I'm eventually going to be responsible for like 200 people, you know, who are going to be flying on these planes, right?
Yeah.
Eventually one day, and so it's just going to be like, okay, I had to switch into that mindset of
Yeah.
being like passenger princess to now being a pilot, you
Right,
know.
exactly.
And so, so I
Was that overwhelming, or was that like did it feel a little bit like angst, or did it feel like pressure?
there was definitely a set of pressure. I
Okay.
feel like, especially like learning private. You know, in private, you're learning everything.
Yeah.
You're learning ground knowledge. You're learning how to fly the airplane. You're learning the FARs and regulations. You're learning everything,
Okay.
the systems of your aircraft. And so, when I transitioned to the flying role, I knew that I had to like familiarize something that I knew that was comfortable to me.
Okay.
So I view the airplane as a trumpet. And
Okay.
so, and let me get to it.
No, no, I want to
I'll
hear. I want to
explain
hear.
it in a second. So,
Okay.
my job as a teacher, as a band director, was to help students become successful at their instruments and to become better musicians, right? And
Right.
better people overall. And so, I kind of had to like revert to that mindset again. And so, I had to view as the airplane as a trumpet because I wanted to get better at flying my airplane.
Oh.
And so I was like, okay, so how do I get better at flying my airplane?
Hmm.
Well, there's all these maneuvers that we have to do. All these maneuvers that we have to do are the purpose of it is for having like a better fundamental understanding of flying and to
Right.
make you a safer pilot, right? You can't just like expect to go in one day and just be able to start the airplane and fly like it's a car, right?
Yeah.
There's fundamentals to learning. And so the fundamentals
And
to
you
learning
understand
those
that.
maneuvers. And so I understood that
Yeah.
coming from a teacher background,
Right.
right? And so what I did was I made the airplane think like, or I thought of the airplane as my instrument that I was learning
Hmm.
again back when I was like in middle school.
Hmm.
And I learned, and I was thinking about all these maneuvers that we're having to do as different scales,
Hmm.
different etude exercises, different fundamental exercises. And all those things are just things that help you get better at your instrument. And
Mm,
so all these maneuvers help me get better at flying the airplane.
right.
And so that's helped me ease back a little bit more and be like, okay, this is how I got to view this.
Right.
And I never really ever told anybody that except
Yeah.
my wife, because my wife is also a band director. She's like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was just like, okay, yeah. So
And if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you would be saying that you broke it down into things that you know would be good techniques to have when flying a plane.
yeah.
And I guess I like to put it that way just because uh, I mentioned earlier when we started that I'd
Hmm.
be interested in hearing how you drew a connection,
Yeah.
because I know that when you've done something that's like a discipline or a craft
Yeah.
kind of based thing, that from talking to pilots, I've seen that there's always a correlation that people draw
Yeah.
typically because I think flying a plane is a lot like a craft.
Oh yeah, it
Y-
totally is.
Yeah, and so you don't really think about it that way if you don't know any better,
No.
but you kind of had that thought process.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I hear you saying.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
learning an instrument is very detail oriented, right? You're
Hmm.
like, when I was learning trumpet, the goal was to be better at trumpet, be a better musician, right?
Hmm.
I had to learn all these technical skills, technical fundamentals, all these other things to help me get better at my trumpet. And over time, I got better throughout the years, right?
Right.
And that's the same thing, kind of like here. All these maneuvers, you got to learn these maneuvers because there's purposes and fundamentals to why we do it,
Right.
and then that'll help you become a better pilot.
And so I'd like to drill this down just a little bit more at the risk of being a dead horse here.
Yeah.
But I'm imagining you're like, for example, chandelles. What purpose does it serve to learn chandelles?
So if you look at the airplane flying handbook, the chandelle is basically a high performance climbing rate turn. So let's say, for example, me and you were flying, right?
Hmm.
There's a mountain in front of us.
Okay.
I got to and we can't climb over the mountain, right?
Right.
So I'm going to do what's called a chandelle. And
Hmm.
so basically that maneuver is, like I said, the purpose of it is a high performance climbing rate turn. So basically you go full power,
Hmm.
okay? And then there's two phases of that maneuver. There's constant bank changing pitch, then
Hmm.
there's constant pitch changing bank. So
Okay.
basically what we're doing is that as I'm banking and climbing, purpose of me climbing is to to lower the ground speed so that we're not taking as much ground distance to be able to do this turn, right?
Okay.
And then basically once we get to our 90-degree point, I hold my bank, or sorry, my pitch.
Hmm.
Hold my pitch, and I'm like at the max amount of bank that I can be, and I'm slowly relieving the bank. And so
Okay.
your goal is to
Constant pitch.
maintain your pitch
Okay.
and then slowly relieve the bank, because we're at this point we're at the slowest ground speed that we can
Okay.
be on the ground. So we have least amount of distance to cover. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So that way you have more time. It sounds like you're slowing down time essentially to give yourself more space to do something with the plane, which is to change your.
Yeah,
Uh,
change orientation,
yeah.
change your course, right? If
Right.
there's a mountain in front of us, I don't want to hit the mountain, so we're gonna loop around. And let's say we were in a canyon or something, I have
Right.
a limited space that I can do, so I can do a chandelle.
Okay.
And so that's the purpose of that maneuver, right?
Right.
And so you have a set of standards that need to be able to complete it at, and those
Hmm.
standards are just basically there to make sure, one, can you do it proficiently, and
Hmm.
proficiency is all about safety.
Right.
So
And so coming out of being able to, let's just say you perfected a chandelle,
yeah.
which yeah, I'm sure I hear that's one of the more difficult maneuvers that people to get down sometimes.
Dude, I love that one.
Really?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hated lazy eights.
And lazy eights is the other one that I hear. Lazy eights, and then the last, what was that? Eights on
Eights on
pylons.
pylons,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I hear those three kind of get people going. Usually one of those three.
Yeah.
That being said, let's say you perfect chandelles or something like that.
Yeah.
What does it teach you about flying the plane better? Is it do you come out of that maneuver thinking, oh, I understand how to manipulate pitch versus bank now? Do I understand how to cover less ground when I'm changing orientation? I mean, like, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, even when you're not doing a chandelle, how did those things like kind of add to your bank of how well you can fly a plane?
Yeah, so I think,
Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
yeah, no,
Sorry.
I get what you're
Yeah.
saying. Like, what did you learn out of that,
Yeah.
essentially, right? And so essentially, what I personally, let's just stick with the chandelle, for
Hmm.
example. So what I learned out of that was just okay, now I know what to do in that kind of scenario, right? Or what, now I know what to do when I need to avoid an obstacle in a very short amount of time, in a very short amount of distance. I don't have a lot of distance to cover, so I can do this.
Right, right, right.
Um, and then there's also some, fundamentals of aviation, like
Yes.
aerodynamic aviation stuff that you got to learn too. And all that kind of like correlates back to like the previous maneuvers that you've done. Like
Okay.
it kind of like continues, like just like you're like going through ratings, it all builds up, right?
Right,
Like doing different maneuvers, it all builds up, right?
right,
It like you have to take what you've learned from previous maneuvers to help understand the new maneuvers that you're trying to do, right?
right.
Because like what makes sense to a private student will eventually make sense even more when they become a commercial student, if that
Right.
makes sense.
No, it does. It does. And there's momentum to it.
Right.
It kind of builds upon itself. And I guess the reason I was trying to drill down there is because um, I want people to understand, like, let's say someone's coming into flight training and they haven't done something like band or like maybe
Right.
dance or video or whatever it is,
Something
that
detail
something
oriented.
detail oriented where it took a bit of discipline, maybe even sports.
Right.
Uh, and I'm trying to break down almost what it's like to go into a craft with a little bit of foresight on how to break it down into some of those fundamentals,
Yeah.
and just realizing that, like you were saying, maneuvers are a bit like an opportunity to practice,
Right.
to really get something down. They're supposed to be giving you a level of comprehension, not just like a specific skill. I feel like there's always a
Yeah.
level of comprehension that comes out of each one of those that
Oh
you guys
yeah.
talk about.
Yeah, and
So,
and like you can look in the airplane flying handbook. It's just like something that I wish I did earlier in my training was look at that book more,
mm,
to understand the whys to why we had to do the maneuvers. Because like for example, for me in my commercial check ride, ground went smoothly. It was great.
yeah,
The flight portion, I felt like I've flown. I felt like I flew okay. Like I felt like I've flown, like for the amount of hours that I did to get a commercial check, like I had to get the commercial check ride.
yeah,
I felt like I flew all right.
yeah.
But don't forget that the oral portion continues in the airplane.
Okay.
So the DPE that I was going with, he was like, "All right, so why are we doing these 8 on pylons?" And I was just like, "Well, I know we have to do it because it's in the ACS." So I
Yeah,
was just
right.
like,
You didn't have a good answer
I
for it at
didn't
the
I didn't have
time.
a good answer. And
Yeah.
so he's like, "No, like think about it." Like I was doing the 8 on pylons and like performing the 8 on pylons as like he was asking me these questions.
Wow.
And I was just like it like made me after that like and I did it fine. I got, eventually the answer that he wanted. Um but after that check ride, it was like I need to dig back into the airplane flying handbook, cuz like you can look up why we do slow flight, the purpose of it is for us to recognize how to operate a high angle of attacks and low airspeed.
Okay.
That's the purpose of slow flight.
Yeah.
And so, and like for pilots to understand how to operate the plane on the lower end of the power curve. And so,
Yeah.
the region of reverse command, whatever you want to call it. And so, like it tells you in the flying handbook, like what to expect, and also tells you like common errors
Mm,
to expect too. And
yeah.
so when that really struck me was whenever I was doing ever I was getting my C5 cert,
Okay.
because I was just like, I need to know why we're doing these, because
Yeah.
I'm eventually going to have to teach a student, and the student's going to be like, why do I have to do, whatever, why do
Chandeliers.
I have to do a chandelle if I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that in a 737?
Uh-huh.
Well, just good point,
Yeah.
right? But you may have to do a chandelle in 737. You never know,
Yeah.
or whatever. So, I think it's just understand the whys
Hmm.
and understand the fundamentals that go into the chandelles or whatever maneuver that you are trying to learn at that point
Hmm.
is imperative and important, because you can connect dots better
Yeah.
throughout your training.
Yeah. That makes sense. And it gives it more opportunity to build upon itself, like you were saying earlier.
Exactly.
Looking back, and you kind of mentioned like you wish you looked at the books a little bit more. Is there something that you would tell a new student from your experience? Maybe your past self. What would you tell your past self when starting flight training? Is there any advice you have?
Yeah, so like looking back into my training,
Mm-hmm.
again, like I said, I kind of wish I dug into the books a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I didn't, it's just like, okay, I'm going to read this, but like, what's the purpose of reading it?
Yeah.
And so, I think for me, it's just like, okay, what, like you kind of have to think in the eyes of like a teacher, what is my instructor wanting me to get out of this
Yeah.
kind of deal. And so, and like, again, like I have a teacher background, right?
Yeah.
And so I was able to connect the dots a little bit earlier on, right? And
Right.
so like understand the whys and ins and outs and the hows
Yeah.
to everything. But I think for me, like starting off, get with a group of people. I think get with a group of people who are in the same rating as you and study with those people every day.
Right.
And so, like, I had a group of people that I studied with in private. I had a group of people that I studied with in instrument, commercial, CFI especially. My CFI class was baller. It was
Yeah.
sick. They were a great group of people. I love them to death. They're great. And then a group of people with CFII. I had a group of people for multi.
Hmm.
I just had, and like that's the cool thing about Thrust is there's always people here who either went through the way who's like going through the rating that you're going through or
Yeah.
already been through it,
Right.
and so they can give you some expertise, some knowledge that they learned during their time, and you can like kind of pick up as you go. You kind of like the more you hang out at the school that you're trying to learn at, you kind of learn
Hmm.
through osmosis a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that it kind of takes that to get through a program like this.
Oh yeah,
Uh, and
100%.
and I'll do this little bit of a spiel real quick about some of the things you mentioned. We have obviously DPEs for commercial, right? Is it commercial?
Commercial and as of right now, CFII too.
CFII. So we still use DPEs for those two ratings, but the other four ratings that we typically are going to have you go through, we have what we call EOCs, end of course examiners, and that's usually someone who works here at Thrust. And the only reason we're allowed to pass our own students for check rides is because we abide by the FAA's rules of meeting a certain standard of pass rates, so that we've been granted examining authority. Examining authority allows us to have a 9-month timeline designed for students who come into our flight training program. Now, not everyone's going to go through in 9 months because
Right.
that's just not how things work. Sometimes it might be 10 months or 12 months. I think the average might be around 12 months or so,
Yeah.
at least at this location. But it's designed for you to be able to get through it in 9 months. That being said, that's one thing that makes us a little bit different and why you were able to maneuver quickly. Also,
I see what you did
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there.
And you mentioned something else that is kind of unique to Thrust. The LMS is something we built in house. Something that allows our students to revisit all of the information that we go over in ground courses and often in the planes, because it has basically your entire learning path documented into a structured electronic system for you to be able to learn. So there's more ways for you to learn. That's something we've done here, and I just like to make those two things kind of obvious because we put a lot of effort in both of those things. Also, the last thing is you can't force like culture and community. That's all you guys. You
Yeah.
guys, you come here and you put in the work, and you group up and you teach each other. And all we can do is throw events as much as we can. And on that note, monthly we do have what we call Thrust Day or ZTA Day, where we're treating it like an open house these days. Anyone can come in and check out what Thrust is all about. We celebrate our students who are moving through the program and earning certifications, both flight and maintenance. We have games and Chick-fil-A, all kinds
Chick-fil-A
of, yeah,
is
lots of
awesome.
Chick-fil-A every time. So you don't have to buy Chick-fil-A ever again
Yes,
because
exactly.
we will give it to you. And it's a great time to come kind of see what we're all about. So if you're considering flight training, Discovery Flights, Thrust Day, we invite you to come check it out. Um, Brock, is there anything that you would say to anyone who's thinking about starting flight training right now?
Yeah, honestly, for anybody that's thinking about starting, I would, tour some schools, get an opportunity, get a discovery flight in, see if you like it, ask some, if you know any pilots, ask some pilots about what they experienced through their training. I luckily had, pilots that I could talk to who, one of them works for Southwest. He's one of my good friends. One of them works for Envoy. He's also one of my good friends too. So I was
Hmm.
asking him like, hey, tell me about your lifestyle. How is it? Like, how's that work lifestyle going? And then two, tell me about your training. How was it?
Hmm.
And then do as much research as you can into schools. Like, not Thrust is not going to work for everybody, but we hope it does,
Right.
right? And so, um, maybe you want a little bit more one-on-one time and maybe more self-paced rather than accelerated pace.
Right.
For me, I wanted an accelerated pace. I wanted to be with a group. I wanted to, those were like the two things that I wanted. And those were the two things that Thrust offered. So,
Awesome.
you guys offer way more than just that.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I was just like, those are the two main things that I was looking at.
Hmm.
Also, whenever you're doing whenever you're researching to schools, research about how many planes they have, how many planes are available,
Yeah.
how's maintenance, is maintenance able to, keep up with the demand? And our maintenance group is awesome.
Yeah.
They're the reason why we get to fly. And so
Hmm.
we couldn't do what we're doing without those guys.
Yeah.
And so, make sure that are you going to be able to learn uh, effectively in these airplanes,
Yeah.
right? And so just take a look into all that stuff as you're doing your research. Obviously, financially, there's going to be some, flight training is expensive. You're going to that
Yeah.
just accept that,
Yeah.
but, see at what rate, at what rate are you willing to, go full forth and just be like, yeah, no, I'm going to do this.
Hmm.
This is what I want. For me, something that helped me is I made a pros and cons list on like a Google sheet of every school.
People do that. I hear a lot of people say that.
And that's what I did. And so the pros definitely outweighed a lot of other schools here. And
Hmm.
so the pros here outweighed a lot of other schools in the area. So I was like, all right, Thrust is it for me.
Awesome.
So
Sweet. Sounds good. Well, thank you
yeah, man,
again for joining us on this episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. And Brock, you've been a great guest. It's been nice to get to know you. I have more
appreciate
questions
it.
for you. Selfishly, I want to know more.
Yeah, you're
So
good.
thank you again, Brock, for sitting down with me and joining me on this episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. It's been great getting to know you and figuring out what's been helping you get through the program. And congratulations on getting through. And I hope that your interview went well,
Appreciate it.
and hopefully we get to have you back again sometime soon.